Welcome back to the class, everyone. Today we are going to be talking about mods once again, and actually just continuing our series of speed and. The purpose of this series is when you encounter a new mod that doesn't have a speed set, but has another set and a really high speed secondary on it, you're like, okay, where does this go? Obviously, we kind of know the characters that want to be fast. What happens when you roll a crit damage set or an offense set that also has a lot of speed on it? Who kind of takes priority for that? Because not every character also wants to be fast. So in this series, we've already covered crit damage, we've already covered offense, tenacity, and today we are going to be covering potency. If you want to see these should all be in a playlist. You should be able to select and go back, and we can actually talk on specifics of why we chose the characters that we did and why that's important. But getting on today with potency, one little advice that I have to give here at the very beginning that we did with tenacity as well. When we were looking at characters with tenacity, these aren't characters that we necessarily just want to load up with full tenacity sets, and the same is going to be true about potency. We're going to look at them in a couple seconds here, and not all the characters, in fact I don't think any of them, have just a potency set. I think they're also combined with a speed set or an offense set or something of the sort. There really aren't that many characters that just want full potency nowadays, especially with the amount of tenacity down. You can kind of just settle with and then complement it with, say, speed or offense or something. So without further ado, we're going to get into the potency characters, and first up is Quill himself. So Quill is a really cool character, and I think one of the biggest things about him, number one, he wants to be super fast, and the reason why is because he's gonna pass turn meter to his entire team, whether this be a bounty hunter team or a Beskar Mando team, who is going to go and then start this chain reaction of turn meter because of Beskar's lead. That being said, he wants to be fast to do that, and he also wants potency to constantly not only land this debuff, but kind of create this huge chain effect of debuffs. So here he does special damage, stun them for 1 turn, inflict shock and speed down for 3 turns. This ability is super broken if you've ever used like a Galactic Legend to solo BAM, because it has a cooldown of 2, but the effects last for 3 turns. So if you taken C or something like that, even C taking so many turns, it's very hard for him to constantly shake off the shock. And they're already burning inflict exposed for 2 turns. So again, we're getting more debuffs the more often we're getting to use this, and the more often things are landing. And if the target already had shocked, inflict shock for 3 turns on the weakest enemy that didn't already have it. So by the fact that you keep getting to use this over and over, and if you already landing those other debuffs, you get to land more of them, which ends up being a really cool effect of this. And while the team, IG-11 on the team, does have tenacity down, it's nice to be able to rely on his own potency. Not just because of that, but he also shares a percent of his potency through his unique. So overall, just great character. The potency can be used to go on to BAM or whoever to land healing immunity and whatnot. So we have him with a potency set and a speed set. Up next actually is going to be a potency set and an offense set. Poe isn't a character that we typically think about that needs potency, but he actually needs it quite a bit. The resistance team as it is, whether it be under JTR or whether it be under Finn, doesn't have a great way to get tons of potency out of their characters. And if you look at Poe's base, it's actually really stinking low. It's only about at 50%, so anything over 50% potent or 50% tenacity, or has a chance to start resisting a lot of his debuffs. And we don't think about it, but the dude does a ton of debuffs. Basic does vulnerable, his first special does daze and stagger, also can do damage over time, and then his third special has a 2-turn stun, which is pretty rare, and it can pick a buff immunity on the opponent. So a bunch of crucial debuffs, and I mean that's really what he has to offer. And then on top of that, this is really cool, if every single time they lose a debuff, they lose 5% protection. So it's not just the fact of, okay, a dot, 1 dot, or 3 damage over time. Is that really going to do that much? Really what this is trying to get at is you're trying to put more debuffs on the enemy team so you can cut back on the protection and eventually just kill them. So again, another character that can use 1 potency set. I wouldn't maybe sacrifice the full offense, although you probably could. The dude does most of, we don't even have an offense primary on him here. The guy does most of his damage, whether again it be JTR or with Rey, by the max health damage that they're doing when they become inspired, not really by him alone. So yeah, actually, I wouldn't hate full potency on him if I had the mods to be able to do that. Next up is going to be Mara Jade. Mara Jade, we talked about this a little bit in our last video with Wampa and Tenacity, but this is a little bit awkward because Mara Jade has a AoE tenacity down that'll land on every single enemy. Tenacity down cannot be resisted. You do not need potency to land tenacity down, and tenacity down is about like 999 something tenacity down on the enemy. So every single debuff, if they have tenacity, should land, or tenacity down should land. That being said, Mars' very first hit where she can stun the enemy does go through a normal potency and tenacity check. And if the enemy Wampa, for example, has enough tenacity to deflect this or to resist this, then he gets to kind of stomp on your Star Killer team in 3v3. So I know that may feel niche, but that is like the one specific counter that is working that isn't a Galactic Legend, and that's the one that we need to stop. Very, very true as well. And 5v5, the main counter right now for Star Killer with Mara Jade on it is General Grievous. And one of the ways that can be really annoying to stop General Grievous is by being able to land shock on B2 even when he doesn't have tenacity down, because you can get it out there, but B2 takes so many turns back to back, he can shake it off super easily. And for you to come in here and hit with shock, even when the B2 is modded for tenacity and was getting extra tenacity from B1, you can still land it and you can still stop that team cold. So again, I know it's a little awkward, the fact that she has tenacity down, that we still want to mod her for a little bit of potency. But like I said, there are the specific matches where a non-Galactic Legend has a chance to beat Star Killer is where it really helps. And her base really is similar to Poe, isn't that high. And I know she gets about 55% between like her Palpatine's bonuses and whatnot. But still, you want that to be as high as possible because B2 can fairly easily have 150% tenacity against you. Next up is going to be B1. B1, and actually, well, I guess we'll spoiler our last one for the Repo. The reason why these two characters are going to be able to take potency sets and it's going to be very good for them. Number one, like they have debuffs that are important and that you want to land every now and then. But on the other hand, they also just have a bunch of stats that are useless. So how B1 works from it, we won't go into it too thoroughly. But he doesn't have like health or protection. It says it's reduced to 1 and then there's 100 stacks of droid. So that immediately makes about 3 stats almost entirely worthless. Health, protection, and defense. You can make an argument that defense is kind of good because then a character's doing less damage and they're getting less health steal. Like that's technically a thing. The other 3 stats for the most part are just useless. So you have to focus on other ones such as offense, speed, and potency. And since offense doesn't fit into a 2 set, it fits into a 4, you have to make that kind of decision here. The other set naturally ends up being potency, and potency does have a real effect on the General Grievous squad. Again, focusing on teams like CLS or Star Killer, landing the target lock on the enemy teams so that they can't, you know, counter, or I guess counter is actually the big thing that they can't do under the General Grievous lead. That it ends up being huge, and he gets to be able to do that on his special that he uses every single time he's inflicted on the selected target. So again, this is something that, while it's not like the most crucial stat for B1, but at the end of the day, since none of the other stats really matter for him, you might as well already be trying to do one of the only things that he really can do, which is damage, heal, and inflict target lock. 3PO, very similar situation, kind of in a different way. While 3PO actually does kind of want some protection and health and defense, so he just doesn't die, he doesn't do damage. So, different from B1, offense does nothing for him, and I guess this is similar to B1, but like crit damage, crit chance, defense penetration, although that's more of a Datacron thing than it is a Mont thing. All those stats really aren't going to be of any use for him, but he can still use potency. You still want him to land his confusion on the opponents, which I guess is really his only main debuff here. But I mean, that confusion ends up stacking up and doing other things that can be very helpful. Oh, the other one he does have is exposes for his basic, because he is a rebel on his own team, so that is something that works for you. It's not the end of the world. Like, you don't need full potency sets on him if his stuff starts to be resisted. While you really do want the translation to land most of the time, the cool thing about C-3PO under a Luke lead is even if it doesn't, what that ends up doing is generating turn meter for your own team. So it's a very win-win situation. If you can get it to land, great. You're going to have a lot of valuable resources through the confusion. If it doesn't, you still get a little bit of turn meter. So again, probably still want to speed set on him, want him modded for a little bit of survivability, or actually maybe not once everyone has an R7 for Jabba. But yeah, that is going to be it for today, guys. So if you have a potency set mod, whether it be an arrow, a cross, diamond, whatever, with a potency set, and it's pretty fast and you're trying to find a character to put it on that isn't just for the sake of speed, those 5 characters are great solutions. And again, we don't typically talk about Galactic Legends, but if you do have JML, he's actually we'll just make him an honorary mention for this one. He actually can benefit from it a lot. He does a lot of debuffs, and his turn meter pushback is also a potency and tenacity check, so he's a great suggestion as well beyond the 5. But that is going to be it for today, guys. So, as always, stay awesome.